It's a brand new product we're having come out, and this really, how I understand it, really fits very, very well with Mosaic, and addresses a big need that I think a lot of facilities are have been missing or have been doing it in ways that, well, are very manual, to say the least. I've heard numerous times about spreadsheets here and spreadsheets there and all kinds of stuff. Talk to us about what Tessera is and how this really addresses that segment of the market that has been missing, I guess.
Well, let me start with today is the official release of Tessera. Go ahead, James.
It's a great product, and I know we're going to talk about it more as we go forward. But just to give you where it sort of fits into the market where we see it fitting in, we've got plenty of customers that, as you say, still working on spreadsheets. All of the devices, the signal flows, everything is modeled in spreadsheets. And to be honest, there's nothing wrong with it. And we can definitely, we have tools within Mosaic to automatically ingest that information and build all of the data that we need internally within Mosaic to work with those spreadsheets. But it's not an ideal way for customers to manage their data. There's no source control, there's no management, there's no change management processes around that. And that's really where Tessera sort of fits in. In a nutshell, Tessera is an asset management system, a configuration database that allows our customer to model any information that they want. It doesn't just have to be assets. It could be maintenance contracts. It could be, service flows. It can be whatever they need to cover within their data. But effectively, it is a tool to manage that wealth of information that is always present in these facilities. And it sort of fits in, bigger customers typically have these tools already. So maybe they have ServiceNow, maybe they have BMC Remedy, or hopefully they don't. But there's already tools out there that do this ITSM, ITIL sort of type management. And what we found was that those are very expensive tools that usually have, reoccurring costs in the $1 or $2 million sort of range, depending on, that's for the really big customers, but it's still an expensive tool to own and operate. And then you've got the other side of the scale where people are using spreadsheets and all the rest of it to manage their data. And there's a sweet spot in the middle that we're trying to tackle here with Tessera, which is, okay, you don't need all of the bells and whistles that come with ServiceNow. You don't need full-on change management. You don't need ticket integration, because you can use JIRA and other perfectly good tools out there in the marketplace. But you still need something to manage your data, and that's where Tessera sort of fits in. It's a flexible management platform that allows you to model whatever piece of information that you need, and it could be printers, it could be telephones, it can be whatever you happen to have in your facility. It really doesn't matter, cabling, but it can model anything and everything. And one of the nice things is it's fully integrated into Mosaic. So any information that you put into Tessera can flow directly into Mosaic. The nice thing is information that's being collected and processed by Mosaic 10 can flow information back into Tessera. So if you've got a whole host of devices that Mosaic is supposed to be monitoring and controlling, but we can't find them on the network, or they're not responsive on the network, we can feed that information back to the asset management system Tessera, and that allows the users of Tessera to get real-time stats information about the information. So maybe that device doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it's been RMA'd to the manufacturer, whatever the scenario is, but that live information can flow back into Tessera to make the process of managing all the devices, all the assets that you have across the facility easier.
I think that is one of the most helpful things I've ever heard. I mean, to have everything in one place under a click of a button, and you can obviously report those things again back in. And there's also a configuration sharing with Tessera too, is there not? I mean, is it?
Yeah. So going, we are officially releasing it to our first customer today. and they have basically 4 stakeholders in 4 different countries. Going back to ROI, so basically they had one person who was responsible for collating the data from all 4 of these disparate operators, and basically maintaining these spreadsheets. So you can imagine both the work to do that, but also how error prone it is. And in fact, as we were building the model within Tessera, it was amazing how many things were inconsistent between the different groups. And so now that it's under Tessera, there's consistency checking. There's a single flow that all 4 of these stakeholders then follow, and basically remove the need for the one person that actually had to collate it all. And as happens, that one person actually left the company recently. So you can imagine that they would have had to train somebody new to then do all this work.
Well, the nice thing there is you take the big game of telephone away, right? Because the stakeholders are making the changes directly in Tessera. It's not going through that third person anymore. So, it takes one human out of the loop, and therefore it reduces the error conditions that are being, as good as one person can be, it's almost inevitable that there's going to be, changes that are going to affect the equipment. So taking that person out of the loop, and the stakeholders have direct access, and multiple users being able to access and modify and look at the same information, that same, what do we call it, system of record. So it's a central hub, and it's a guarantee to be consistent at any moment in time, gives them a huge amount of both visibility and power, which they didn't have previously.
Now, I have to imagine that if a facility doesn't have, or let's say they have an asset management solution, which is, MS Excel, how easy is it to port thousands, maybe tens of thousands of devices in? I mean, because that's obviously the big hurdle, right? If you're using spreadsheets or if you're using another system of some kind, how do you get information into Tessera easily?
If you already have the spreadsheets, it's defining how you want to model it in Tessera, which a lot of times is not how you have it in the spreadsheets, because what I found is there was a lot of data copied and pasted between spreadsheets, because they don't, it's not easy to link spreadsheets and all that, where you really want kind of referential. Change something once, it's applicable all over. But once you have the model, we can take those same spreadsheets and just ingest them as the data model. And as James was saying, we can also just ingest directly from Mosaic too. So that's how we were bootstrapping for this project.
In fact, that's what the customer it's being released to today. There was, we've done that ingest for them. And one of the things that I would say, if you're really serious about moving away from Excel as a asset management tool, is to take a step back. Think about your processes. Think about the data that you want to capture in a tool like Tessera, and put that forethought into how you want to model it, because it makes that transition so much easier. And being able to pull that raw data and transform it into tables in Tessera is an easy task, and that's we definitely assisted in that scenario. But effectively, we build an automatic import tool that pulls all that information in. Rather than having to take those records line by line and copy it in, which would be a very tedious job.
Yeah, the documentation, modeling is, because you have it in spreadsheets, but the spreadsheets aren't necessarily geared to, multiple different views, multiple different stakeholders. So, you have your back office stakeholders, you have your IT department stakeholders, you have your engineering stakeholders. You really want to, kind of organize the data so that it's representative for all of those people. And what's nice is with security, you can actually prevent, who actually can see and or modify the data.
And you talk about that, and I've seen some stuff as we have Friday meetings, what's new with Mosaic, and I guess it should be now what's new with Tessera. And one of the things that I thought was really cool is that you can really specify the device coming in to multiple different areas of the facility, or even services. So let's say it was, you had a big facility, you had multiple, networks running in there, you could really section off where those specific devices go. I thought that was one of the most interesting things. And of course, being an old master control guy, it made sense to me in that respect on how to, separate those services out. What other ways can you separate those devices out? And can those devices be shared even if they are separated out in Tessera?
Yeah, so
Yes.
one of the ways that we model it is, or can model it, because there's multiple different ways. But one of the things we actually separate physical from logical devices simply because a lot of times, especially in a broadcast world, you have something that's as part of a signal flow. So it's a logical concept. You have a receiver, you have an encoder, you have a multiplexer, there's various different things that make up the end-to-end signal flow. And one of the nice things in Tessera is you can make a logical separation between what is logically within the broadcast chain and the physical equipment that's backing that up. And it's a nice way because often you're switching out equipment, you're having to RMA, you're having to take, change devices out all the time. But you don't want it to affect your overall flow because you still have to have those pieces of equipment within the chain. And one of the nice things of that separation is it does make the maintenance of the overall end-to-end system so much easier. And also because it's a multi-tenanted system, right? So, and like you said, you're going to have IT devices in there, you're going to have broadcast devices in there, you're going to have facility equipment, HVAC, UPSs, whatever it may be. All of that information is going to be stored in there. Not all of that information is relevant to certain areas, so you can definitely ring fence certain devices, or you can categorize them in different ways so that they can all be part of your overall assets of the business. But certain assets are broadcast related, some assets are IT related, some assets are master control, some are a remote truck, whatever they may be. You can classify them within the data model. And that's one of the powers of the data model. And that's why I say you should always take a step back and think about how the system is going to be used and what information you want to capture in it. And that will dictate and govern somewhat how you build the model.
And I mean, there is a process of, try to think more generically, because the spreadsheets are never generic. They're just, this is the data now. And they're used to just going into the spreadsheets and updating it. Well, it's so much easier if I can just relate something and then change the relationship, because then I don't have to enter the same data 5 places. And, so the modeling is the most important part. And, definitely where, I think where we're in a place where we can help the customer, rethink how they're tracking stuff.
And it's not always easy for a customer, right? I mean, to make that paradigm shift, if you're used to working in spreadsheets, which are very specific to the need that they're fulfilling, making that shift into something that's more flexible and more generic is hard. And that's where we can help with that transition. Having done this for many years, now with Tessera, but also with previous incarnations of management software. Having that foresight to go, okay, don't just model it for a very specific need. How about if you abstract it this way, this is the benefits of doing that, and being able to give them that insight. It doesn't always sink in straight away, but over time they realize.
Even if right now you're not tracking RMA stuff, well, make it so that you can track, RMA devices and things like that. Because in the future, you'll be like, oh, well, actually, we want to track, that's been shipped back, or, I've now got spares. So, they didn't track spares in their spreadsheets. Well, somebody was tracking the spares. These devices existed in a warehouse somewhere. Well, let's track them now.
And then you can obviously assign those spares to specific devices and at least know where they are by location and
exactly. And then when you swap them in, it's simply, as James said, switching the logical from the physical device that got shipped back to the one that just came out of spares.
So I know we've been working with this customer for quite a long time to bring Tessera to market for them. Can you talk a little bit about the process and what it took for them to start thinking outside of a spreadsheet and start thinking into more of a dynamic asset management solution?
So, I started with the concept of modeling, and I But again, going back to what James is saying, it's tough, if you've been doing something this way the whole time to start thinking about it differently. But again, because we were tying from 4 different sites together, and even the spreadsheets they had were, not consistent. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit of an iterative process showing what the benefits of, hey, if we move this from here to here, look at how much more flexible it is. Even, working with them to, okay, for each of your stakeholders, what is their entry point into the system? And then from that entry point, where, how did they traverse? So it was definitely an iterative process. We're definitely, still going through the process. So we're delivering the final software release today, but, the modeling is going to keep going. And one of the nice features is, as I told them, I'm like, you don't have to make every decision now, but the more thoughts you can put into it, because obviously we can change the data, we can export it back out, model it, but the more that we can get right now, less we have to change later. And it also opens it up to more capabilities.
One of the things Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, to harp on one of the points that David made, one of the nice things about an asset management system like Tessera is it is agile. So, you don't get locked into one way of modeling your data. As your business need changes, or as your understanding of the system or whatever you want to model changes, then Tessera can move with you through that process. So not only can we tweak the model, we can change the model, we can migrate data around, which, if you think back to spreadsheets, is not a simple process. Once you've got a spreadsheet structure in place, it's not something you can easily just radically change. But with tools like Tessera, you can. So you're not cornered into a certain way of modeling. It can adapt and it can grow as your need and as your business changes.
One of the things you guys said, and I'll go back to it briefly, was spares. Spares of all. I was in TV for a long time. I've torn enough TV stations apart in my day to realize that spares tend to out of sight, out of mind, and be forgotten. And then you have, I remember opening boxes that were from the 60s and going, what is this? And, oh, we don't have that box anymore. Or, oh, that's where that is. Or, blah, blah, blah. And talking a grand scale with the current customer we're releasing to, it obviously makes sense because now multiple facilities across the world can know what spares are available, and those spares can be used in a better way. So even if we have old equipment at one facility, if another facility has a part for that equipment and bringing it in, but even talking down to the local level, like a K station or a W station, there's always transmitter sites, there's the main facility, there's probably a truck somewhere, and then a warehouse possibly. And even with that, you have new guys coming in all the time. It's kind of a revolving door in a lot of cases. But if you have that assets in Tessera, then if you went, I'm assuming that if you have a device, it says what available spares are available to it and where those spares could possibly be.
Well, yeah. So Tessera also includes reporting. So going back to the logical physical device, I can get a list of spares by just list all the physical instances that are not currently related to a logical device. So, 3 seconds, I can see my entire list of spares. Going back to the modeling, they wanted to have a checkbox of in use or spare. And I said, but that doesn't make sense because then somebody has to update that in addition to relating it. Because we have this whole consistency checking, this consistent model, we can do basically a report and here's your list of spares. No longer, kind of looking around to see what's there, you're tracking it.
And I guess go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, one of the things that I'd never considered actually building, it was something you just raised. It's like, if you have multiple sites, and you want to coordinate your spares between them, you can actually reduce the amount of spares you have to carry because, you've got that visibility, you've got that knowledge, and you can basically create one spares pool that covers multiple facilities and multiple sites. So you don't necessarily have to cover as many site spares as you would do ordinarily. So I hadn't really thought about that as another way that you can benefit from a system like Tessera, and I think it's a good point.
Well, and probably the reason I think about it, James, is I was a service manager at one point in time with a little company called Leach a million years ago. We had a Burbank facility and we had a Toronto facility, and both of those worked in tandem with systems. And I can tell you, I can't remember what the system was we used at the time, but it was very convoluted. I hated it with a passion, and it was always difficult to kind of figure out. We had spares managers that would only deal with spares constantly and knowing where all those were. But I had to move our Burbank facility to Chatsworth, and it was amazing to me. Again, you open this box going, what is this? And it's a box full of drives that probably were, I don't know, a couple $1,000s a piece, and they'd been sitting underneath a box somewhere, and nobody knew why they were there or what they were there, and they could have been used as spares for my customers that I was dealing with. So, this goes far beyond just a television or a broadcast facility. I think it really helps in a lot of spare departments, and then when you lump SLAs into that, that even makes more sense, because now you're able to fulfill those and keep those SLAs working for you, as opposed to what most people do is just forget about them.
Well,
you can track warranty time.
Like I say, preventative maintenance and warranties and everything like that can also be tracked under this tool. So, you would know, especially on preventative maintenance, okay, I need to perform routine maintenance on these devices, and you can get a report again showing you all the devices that need preventative or routine maintenance done at a given schedule, and be able to use that to meter out the work. So it's not just physical devices that can be tracked in Tessera. It can be everything from your contracts. It could even be service contracts with content providers. I mean, if it's a piece of information and it needs to be tracked, then Tessera is the place to do it.
And you were also saying it works very, very well with JIRA as well, right? So from our manufacturer standpoint, it becomes very easy for them to track what we're doing to help them solve an issue.
So what we have integrated for this customer is, an issue occurs that Mosaic detects the issue, generates a JIRA ticket, and then JIRA then pulls from Tessera more information about the device. And so, it's kind of a, all-inclusive, change tracking.
Yeah, and we took a decision when we designed Tessera. I mean, if you go to a tool like ServiceNow, it tries to do everything. It's a ticket system. It's a change management system. It's an asset management system as well. It covers all of those areas. And we took a decision. Because we weren't trying to compete with a enterprise full-on system like ServiceNow, is that we'll integrate with all of those ticket systems out there like JIRA, Opsgenie, all the rest of them, because they do ticketing better than we could recreate it within Tessera. We'll focus on a very specific need, which is the asset management side and the change management side, and let the other systems like JIRA deal with the ticketing system. And with a good integration, then customers can choose what ticketing system. If they already have one in house, they can use that. So it gives them more flexibility rather than tying them into one monolithic product like ServiceNow. And it allows us and our development team to focus on one very specific need within that overall framework, which I think works well.
So I'm confused by something that Dave just said. So in JIRA,
wouldn't be the first.
It's not. That if you put a ticket into JIRA, that JIRA will go out and pull data from Tessera?
Yep. So you can set up basically fields, and we have a full-on REST API to Tessera, so it can just directly extract data. So it can get, manufacturer model, all of that information directly. So user doesn't have to manually enter it.
I'm so confused by this. I mean, I don't know how many times I've waited for customers to come back with data from the product they were having problems with, and now we're just doing it automatically to move that process forward without human intervention. I don't even understand how that's...
I think it's an evolution, though, right? it's an evolution, but you have to. I mean, in this day and age, you have to play nicely in the wider ecosystem, or else you're not really going to get anywhere in business. And that's one of the things we have to. We're hooked into Slack, into Microsoft Teams, JIRA, Opsgenie, we even ServiceNow and other. I mean, within an enterprise system, we aren't the monolithic product anymore. I mean, we are monitoring all of the elements and all of the devices at the element level. We're filtering that up. We're creating service management views of the world. And that information is useful to the wider organization. So we have northbound interfaces to be able to push alarm information, parameter information, so external systems can request data from us. We have integrations with like I said, Slack, Teams, JIRA, Opsgenie. There's probably a whole host of other ticketing platforms out there. We also integrate into other asset management tools because, not all of our customers are going to say, wow, Tesla is wonderful, I want to buy it. Hopefully they do, but if they already have a product in place, they're not going to back out of that investment. They want something that's going to work seamlessly with the other systems that they have in play in their facility. And it's just it's a fact of life these days. If you don't play nicely with other applications that are out there in the marketplace, customers aren't going to buy you, and it's just a fact of life. We have to integrate with all these tools.
Well, and it sounds like the more and more I find out about Tessera, because it is so new, and the guys have been really doing a lot of work behind the scenes, that really it comes down to being a more informed engineer, more informed chief engineer, whatever it happens to be. You're now understanding everything that's going on in your facility at any given time. It really has the ability to change the landscape of your job and make either your job easier or more efficient in the long run, which is, for me, that seems like a huge benefit. And talk about ROI. I mean, that's a simple one, I guess. When you're saving your engineers time so that they can focus on things that require more hand-holding, like cameras need to be fixed all the time. Wouldn't it be nice that they could focus on that more as opposed to trying to track down problems inside the facility?
Track down, do I have any spares for this encoder that just failed? And you said engineers, but it's not just engineers, it's back office staff. They're dealing with the content providers. So they're the provider requests a report. Show me which markets you're broadcasting my content into, and because that's part of our agreement. So I want to see your reports and stuff like that. So it's engineering, it's back office. It basically makes your company smarter and more efficient.